and we will begin our service directly. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can I see some smiles here? Oh, okay, so here's the deal. You know, how many of you have pets? Can you raise your hand? Okay, how many have ever had pets? I mean, even if you don't have them now. Okay, yeah, see most of you. So where I grew up, and I think most of you already know this, I grew up in West Virginia. And what kind of pets did I have growing up? Chickens. I had chickens for pets. They were very tame. And yes, I had multiple roosters. And let me tell you something, when you have roosters, you get up when the roosters get up. Just as when you have pets, you get up when they want you to get up, not when you think you should get up. So anyway, I hope you're wide awake. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine this beautiful Sunday morning. And I've got some announcements for you. And the first one is, it's another interactive announcement here. How many people during this pandemic have used Amazon, right? Raise your hand. A lot of people have used Amazon. Okay, so in Amazon, when you go in, there is a button there. It's called Amazon Smile. And Amazon Smile will take you to a list of organizations that when you order on Amazon, every time you order on Amazon and you push that button, if you find First Parish, you can click on that button, and every time you place an order, there will be a donation given to First Parish. Every single time. And I have to admit, I've used Amazon during the pandemic. I haven't done that once. And just think, every time you use it, you can make a difference with this community. So next time you're in Amazon, make sure you go to Amazon Smile and push that button, find First Parish, tag it, and when you place your order, you'll be helping this community. So next Sunday, March 14th from 4 to 5 p.m. on Zoom, we will have a lyceum entitled Mary Baker Eddy, A Most Remarkable Woman. It's being presented by Benjamin Sears, and it's being done in honor of Women's History Month. If you don't know much about Mary Baker Eddy, all you have to do is go to downtown Boston and you will see a major, beautiful edifice to the works of Mary Baker Eddy. She is not only significant as a woman, but a woman who in the 19th century started a world religion. It was a man's world back then. That's quite an achievement. Next Sunday, the Lyceum is 4 to 5 p.m. So on Tuesdays, testing Tuesdays are actually on hold, but from the First Parish website at uubedford.org, there's a link to reserve a day and time now for the next dates, which will be open, which will be before and after April school vacation. Next Sunday, we will mark the 1-year anniversary of our pandemic isolation, a time of grief and sadness. We know that hope's on the horizon, and still we have much to mourn. Together, we will help to build a memorial of rocks carrying images of loved ones lost, a word or a drawing, and these rocks will go into a memorial chalice that will be erected on the edge of our memorial garden to remain for at least the next year. Do you want to participate? I do. Okay. Come to the church, pick up a rock from the Elm Street entrance. Markers are there if you wish them, or decorate the rock with a glued image or an illustration or a word, but bring the rock back to church by next Friday evening, as we'll be erecting the memorial by then. We'll see pictures of the rocks you've decorated and the chalice being made during next Sunday's service. When you bring your rock back, we'll have candles for you to pick up and take home with you. These will be lit during next Sunday's service. If you cannot get to the church and want to participate, please contact Deb Weiner. Deb, can you wave? There we go, everyone. If you have trouble getting to the church to pick up a rock and want to participate, please contact Deb and we will deliver a rock to you. So pick up a rock, decorate it, return it by next Friday evening, take home a candle for each member of your family. Together, we will mourn. Together, we will rekindle hope. So this morning, I don't know about you, but I actually have to get dressed for this service, and I'm going to do it in front of you, okay? So I brought my nightcap. You know, it's my favorite Scrooge nightcap, because Scrooge is a favorite character. And, you know, I'm actually feeling like I want to be all snug, okay? So there we go. So everybody, you know, make sure you get snug for this service. Oh, I meant to say, coincidentally, mark your calendars for Friday, March 18th. It's going to be World Sleep Day. Friday, March 18th. So check it out. Feel free to celebrate early and often. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tina Nappy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tina Nappy, and I'm here representing the Interim Minister Search Team, which as a reminder, that is myself, Abby Hafer, Brown Pulliam, and Chris Gibbons. And we just wanted to first thank everyone in the congregation for sharing thoughts, perspectives, questions that you have about this process of bringing on an interim minister. We've heard from about 75 or so of you, and just want to know that we really take your comments and your thoughts and your questions to heart, and are really working on developing a really good, solid packet to recruit an interim minister. And so we wanted to invite anyone else who would like to have a conversation with us to come after the service today at 11:30. We will gather on Zoom, and the link was in the order of service, and I'm happy to send it out in the chat as well. And really, we're just wanting to create space so that everyone knows kind of what this process is, and also what it's not, because I know there's a lot of questions about why are we doing an interim process. And I just wanted to just assure folks that this is very necessary and very important part of our kind of honoring our 30 years with John and grieving the loss of that ministry, but also really having an interim minister will help us move forward and continue to be the congregation that we want to be together. So I just invite you again, 11:30, if you'd like to have a conversation, and also just reach out to any one of us on the team if you have questions in the interim. Thank you so much.
And now let's join together as we recite the Unison Affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia. El servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I want to share a story with you that rings true for me. My younger daughter, Abigail, who is now all grown up, was one of those people who just couldn't go to sleep very easily. And she would pop out of bed at least 3 or 4 times a night because she had so much to say to us. And we kept saying, Abby, you need to go to sleep. You need to just get your rest. And she couldn't do it. Well, this is a story about a sheep who wouldn't sleep. The moon rose up high on the grassy green hill. The silver stars shimmered and all was still. The fluffy lambs snuggled up all in a heap, except for one sheep who just wouldn't sleep. I'm not tired. Well, the sheep wasn't ready to finish her day. She didn't feel tired. She wanted to play. How could her friends all just lie around snoring? Bah, thought the sheep. Sleeping is boring. She wanted to run and to skip and to leap. The last thing she wanted to do was sleep. Hush, said a rabbit. Will you please quiet down? It's hard to get rest with you leaping around. If you're having trouble with falling asleep, just do what I do and try counting sheep. Counting her friends kind of sounded like fun. Thanks, said the sheep, and she started with one. But the sheep in her mind ran a zigzaggy line, so she kept losing track. Was that 8 or 9? Thinking and counting soon made the sheep dozy. She flopped on the ground, but she couldn't get cozy. Not cozy. Still not cozy. Nah. Your wool, said the hedgehog, is soft as can be. Be thankful you don't have the prickles like me. The hedgehog was funny. He made the sheep giggle, which made her legs jiggle and made her tail wiggle. And after some jiggling and wiggling about, she found she had wiggled her sillies right out. The sheep closed her eyes. Was something beside her? She popped her eyes open and shrieked, Eek! A spider! Shh, said the spider. It's my bedtime too. Don't think about me, and I won't bother you. The sheep breathed in deeply, then slowly breathed out every thought, every fear, every worry and doubt. Spiders, spider webs, thunder, storms, lightning, the dark, shadows, haircuts, missing out, bugs, monsters. Now her body was rested, her mind was all clear. But what were those noises that she started to hear? Ooh, peep, ooh, chirp, ribbit, coo, coo, peep, croak. On and on it went. Shh, 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 said a cricket. It helps if you try to imagine the sounds as a sweet lullaby. The little sheep listened and closed her eyes, and when she did, to her surprise, the hoots and the chirps and the peeps were a song. The music was soothing, and before very long, the moonlight grew dim on the grassy green hill. The silver stars twinkled, and all was still. As the wispy white clouds drifted dreamily past, the sheep who wouldn't sleep slept at last. The end. Friends, we've come to the time in our service where we share our joys and our sorrows together. I want to introduce Marge Heckman from our lay pastoral care team.
Good morning, everyone. As Deb said, my name is Marge Heckman, and I'm a member of our lay pastoral care team here at First Parish. At this time in the service, we invite you to light a virtual candle of joy or concern. So I would light one last candle for all of those joys and concerns that we keep in our hearts.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Cecil Mercado and my pronouns are she and her. I want to read an excerpt of a January 2019 interview of 3 leaders of the Boston Ujima project, which started the Ujima Fund, which is what we're having for the Share the Plate today. It's this article that fully grabbed my attention to Ujima. This January, I started to make a monthly donation to the Ujima Fund, and I invite you all to do the same. So quote, in Boston, the average net worth of a white family is $247,500, compared to just $8 for African American and $0 for Dominican families. For communities of color, a generational lack of financial wealth not only diminishes the quality of life, it also makes businesses and housing dependent on outside capital. Practically, this means entrepreneurs of color struggle to access conventional financing, while alternative higher cost commercial and home loans fill the market. Further, outside developers are buying up land, raising costs, and selecting commercial tenants that propel gentrification and threaten entire neighborhoods. The Boston Ujima project was started in 2015 by community organizers, small business owners, and impact investors who all saw the pathologies of unaccountable capital in our communities. Ujima is a Kwanzaa principle and the Swahili word for collective work and responsibility. Rather than depending on historically negligent financial institutions, Ujima Project invites residents to forge our own futures by pooling our assets and meeting our own needs. We launched the Ujima Fund as the latest democratic investment fund in the country. In our small way, we're creating a living, breathing alternative to a system of the top-down control of finance. With Ujima, every investor has an equal voice in the governance of our fund, whether investing $50 or $50,000. Rather than voting with our money, we'll literally just vote. Voting membership is restricted to Boston residents and is intended for those who live in or identify with our working class neighborhoods of color. Residents of wealthier neighborhoods or supporters from outside of Boston are invited to join as non-voting solidarity members. End quote. The fund is seeking charitable contributions called the Imani gifts, meaning faith in Swahili, to build the fund's loan loss reserve. Ujima has created the Imani gift pool to secure investments in the Ujima fund, especially those made by their working and middle-class investors who may be less able or willing to risk losing money with their investment. Half of today's offering will be a charitable contribution to the fund as an Imani gift. Your generosity is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil. And we invite your generosity at this time as we enjoy some beautiful music from Peter Tchaikovsky.
I want to say good morning to everyone. As you know, I want to work as little as possible, especially these last 12 months on Zoom. It has been a year, folks. We have been doing this for a year. Ain't this a blessing? Ain't this a kick in the head? So, as I've done before, I figured today I'd revise a 10-year-old sermon titled In Praise of Sleep, especially because there's now a COVID connection. Everybody gets a pandemic perspective on sleep. Speaking of working as little as possible and speaking of sleep, there was a Globe book review last week of 2 new books on something called Niksen, Niksen, which is some sort of Dutch art of doing nothing. Doing nothing doesn't come naturally to us, you know. It requires practice. Niksen induces serenity. We have to unlearn our proclivity for productivity. Anyway, the best sort of sleep induces serenity. And so for all these reasons, I figured that sleep would be a timely topic for us, and you can remember to change your clocks next week. But then I also had the bright idea to get you involved, make you paint this fence, put on my belt and my suspenders, and ask for your thoughts about sleep, which I did, and you responded with some wonderful commentaries, which I've just got to use. And so even though it turned into a bit of work and required something more than nothing to put it all together, what I'm going to do is give you some just abbreviated bullet points from that old sermon. Yes, I'll send you a link to the whole darn thing, which is quite well researched and informative and, of course, charmingly amusing. And after I have given you the really condensed revision this morning, I'll then share some of what you sent me. Because, like I've said, when I read you your own words, you really can hear a pin drop, especially when you're on Zoom and muted. So in that old sermon, I said, there is a long and noble tradition of sleeping in church. And then I quoted the book of Acts. Everybody get out your Bibles. This is Acts 20, verses 7 to 12. I'll give you a second. Anyway, Paul was preaching in the street, and a young man named Eutychus was listening from a window 3 stories up, and as Paul went on and on and on, Eutychus fell asleep and fell out of the window all the way down, splat dead. But there is a happy ending. Paul revived him, but you should also be careful should you doze off. And then early in the 18th century, Dr. Robert South, the eminent court preacher in London, interrupted his sermon to awaken the prime minister, warning that if the prime minister did not stop snoring, he might awaken His Majesty the King. In ancient pagan times, sleeping in church was actually a sacred practice, a kind of dream therapy. It was called incubation. The Greek and Roman practice of sleeping within a temple so as to receive a vision, a prophecy, or relief from disease or pain. I quoted somebody who said, if sleep is undervalued, then the virtues of wakefulness are overrated. We live under the tyranny of alertness. The early bird gets the worm. You snooze, you lose. God is always awake. He who keeps you will not slumber. The Buddha is the awakened one. There is just a tyranny of wakefulness. Just a couple of weeks ago, when Reverend Billy was here, I am saying this right now in 2021, recall that my opening words were from a poet who said, "Keep me from going to sleep too soon. Come wake me up, come any hour of night, stomp on the porch, bang on the door, make me get out of bed," so forth and so on. Remember that? I also used those same words in this sermon 10 years ago, and such words, I so wisely said, are the rantings of a sadist. Over the years, I've quoted Rumi, "Don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep." What cruel advice. A few sermons ago, I noted that the favorite and most sung hymns of UU's have lyrics that extol not God, not Jesus, not Aphrodite for that matter, but daylight and morning. Morning has broken. We sang of golden mornings. This is diurnal prejudice. Wake up, I crow. Sleep is for the weak. You can sleep when you're dead. What a crock. We need more vespers and fewer sunrise services. And so this morning I recant. I come not to slander, but to praise sleep. Another of my favorite First Parish stories involves a UUA consultant who came to us to help with some project, and when he asked a room full of people what they most liked about this congregation, one of our elderly blue-haired doyens, it was Judy Emmons, for those who remember her, Judy eagerly chirped, "I just love the circus-like atmosphere." I know what she meant, and often, I share that sentiment, but one thing we don't do so well around here and in most of our lives is to quiet the circus, be contemplative in repose, close our eyes, slumber and sleep, perchance to dream. And often I am the chief offender. We need some more silent mimes in our troupe. Maybe you could get a mime as your next minister. Noted sleep researcher William Dement quotes Albert Einstein, who said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science." Dement says the most fundamental questions remain mysteries. Why do we sleep? What is its function or purpose? We sleep, he concludes, because we must. It is difficult even to define sleep, but Dement suggests the essential difference between normal wakefulness and normal sleep is the direction of perception. In wakefulness, we perceive and are conscious of the external world. Sleep, in contrast, is a disengagement from the outer world, accompanied by an engagement with the inner world and dream world. 10 years ago, I consulted with one of our in-house biologists, Abby Hafer, who gave me a short course in sleep, the deeper slow wave levels of which she says seem to restore human tissues. The active dreaming stage called REM sleep is paradoxical because in REM brain waves and heartbeats are indistinguishable from awakeness, and yet our skeletal muscles are actually paralyzed, which Abby points out is a good thing, as otherwise you might be acting out your dreams, leaping out of bed, for example, to catch a touchdown pass. Most of us, said Abby, are stupidest in the wee small hours. Disasters like the Titanic, Chernobyl, the Challenger, and Exxon Valdez occurred due to bad decisions made in the middle of the night by sleep-deprived people. In the old sermon, there's stuff as to why, for most people, it is easier to stay up late than to go to sleep early. There is a daily need for clock resetting, and the most effective means of adjustment is sunlight. A walk outside, for the same reason, helps to offset jet lag. In this regard, artificial light can often fool our eyes, which acclimate to lower light, but not fool our brains. While seemingly bright indoors, it is not nearly as bright as outdoors. Brightness is the critical factor, not full spectrum. And you know, people with seasonal affective disorder are prescribed time in front of a bank of incredibly bright lights. There is also good stuff in the old version of this sermon about circadian rhythms. Olympic records are often set in the early evening when our temperature descends to its lowest. Animals, insects, even bacteria and fungi do also have circadian rhythms. In 1748, Swedish scientist Carolus Linnaeus planted a kind of garden clock where you could tell time by what flowers have opened and which have closed. Then and now I preach in praise of circadian rhythms. Thomas Edison thought sleep was a huge waste of time. He claimed to sleep but 4 hours a night, but actually he also took 2 daily naps of up to 3 hours each, which may have contributed to the creativity that helped him invent the very thing that keeps us awake longer. In 1910, before the light bulb, young adults slept about 9 hours each night. Thanks to the light bulb, people sleep an average of 7 hours. That's what I said 10 years ago. In 2021, we sleep even less now. I checked that out. Historians say that before the 19th century, people wrote of sleep intervals as if the prospect of awakening in the middle of the night was common knowledge and normal. People might get up to do chores, smoke a pipe, engage in prayer or reading, converse, visit neighbors, make love, or simply lie there in contemplation and fantasy. Some people are early birds, others middle of the road, and some are night owls. Little kids are typically early bird larks, sleeping as much as 11 hours and then getting up early. And as Abby indelicately told me, they put their fingers up their sleeping parents' noses. I want to name four kinds of tiredness from which we all need some rest. The first kind is sleepiness, the consequences of which range from slow-headedness to accidents to obesity to war. And the antidote is sleep. When the emperor of Persia asked his Sufi master how best to renew his soul, he was told to sleep as much as possible, because the longer you sleep, the less you will oppress. The second kind of tiredness is fatigue, a tiredness of activity. Ours is a hyperactive culture. I used to be skeptical of Orthodox Jews whose refusal to work on the Sabbath can lead to bizarre contrivances, or Christian athletes who refuse to compete on the Sabbath, or the Amish and their horses and buggies, or the old Massachusetts blue laws that once forced me to go round to the back of Lynch's drugstore in Uxbridge to surreptitiously buy a Sunday six-pack. Now, however, I think these are good examples to follow, and we ought declare a Sabbath even unto cash registers. The third kind of tiredness is ennui, E-N-N-U-I, ennui, that feeling of being stuck in a rut, going nowhere, bored. And here the antidote is not mere activity, but activity that engages the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. And last, there is the tiredness of satiation and overconsumption, too much food and stuff and busyness. And classically, the answer to satiation is sacrifice, making do with less, sharing with others, giving things up for Lent, for example. But like Sarah and Annie talked about just last Sunday, I'm here in 2021, folks, but even 10 years ago, I reframed this and urged you to indulge and do more of those behaviors that are salubrious and healthful. Do more of what is good for you and good for all people. I preach in praise then and now, just for example, of sleep, more sleep. Yawning, you should know, is technically called pandiculation. And I see that some of you are pandiculating right now. And so it is time to put this sermon to bed, but that's what I said 10 years ago. And hey, today in 2021, I'm still just getting started. Here come some of your very recent words. Several of you wrote to me of meditation. Karen Frederick says, when she's too awake at night, I say to myself, peace, sleep, peace, sleep, peace, sleep. Breathe in on peace and breathe out on sleep. It becomes a little lullaby. The S sound in peace slides into the S of sleep. Likewise, the P sound of sleep slides into the P of peace. And more often than not, she says, this lulls me to sleep. Diane Martin also says she has a daily meditation practice, but also uses that to help get back to sleep. Irene Gravina relies on advice she received from a yogi. Be with the bed. Be with the bed. That's my yogi impersonation. Let that sink in. Others of you recommended various products. Karen, again, has a fuzzy woven acrylic bed scarf that doesn't slip off the bed and is instantly warm. Sandy Courier advises a good bed and a good pillow and multiple pillows for different body parts. I like that advice, but I say just don't buy your pillow from that guy who owns and advertises My Pillow. That guy's a jerk. Sandy also encourages us to tape your mouth shut. Really, Google it, he says. Tape your mouth shut. It is an all-time practice. You can't listen to others or to nature when your mouth is open. You can't stay sound asleep with your mouth open either. I received multiple recommendations of melatonin. Deb Weiner also put in a good word for Advil PM, Benadryl, the sleep-inducing ingredient in Advil PM, as well as brandy, trazodone, and probably not all of these at the same time. And she also says, yeah, to spraying lavender on one's pillow. But Deb likes sleep masks and earplugs. And Deb has also, by the way, slept better since the election. Janet Breslau says, you're much better off if you don't know what time it is when you wake up. Don't look at the clock. Just roll over and assume you have hours of sleep ahead of you. And we also have some comedians among us. Joanne Glover thinks tossing and turning all night should be considered exercise. Dennis Ahern says, when I die, I want to go peacefully in my sleep like my grandfather and not screaming in terror like his passengers. Of course, that's what Dennis said. I, have heard that joke translated from Hungarian, which cannot be done with all jokes. And Dorothy Africa says, well, it took Snow White 100-year snooze to bag a prince, but there is no report on whether she thought he was worth it. Bada bing. Rich Doherty gave me about a dozen choice stories, all involving, farming. Getting up at 5 a.m. and doing chores while objectively you're still asleep. Rich says, somehow we had a knack of milking cows while sitting on a milk stool with your head leaning into the cow's groin as your pillow, swishing, sometimes shit-caked tail would wake you up with a full pail of milk in front of you. Sleeping while tractor driving. That is how Rich's brother fell into the Wabash River. And Rich had lots to say about the most pleasant sleeps are tin-roofed rain sleeps. And also, he said, if you were near the barn when it started raining and the boss wasn't around, you'd pull the tractor into a shed and go sleep in the hayloft and wake up when the rain stopped beating on the tin roof. There was also the time when the farmer's daughter pulled into the same tin-roofed barn from a different field, and we decided we'd wake up in time to get back on our tractors unnoticed. Bad decision. Rich says, the stories you hear about the fathers of farmers' daughters are true. Rich also had things to say about needing to give sheep a hand while it was giving birth. Being awakened in the middle of the night to give that lambing sheep a hand was the most cruel of sleep interruptions, he says. And Rich adds, all the jokes about sheep and farm boys are wrong. That's what Rich says. Many of you wrote me about COVID and sleep. When Kathy Cordes had COVID, she had extreme sleepiness and slept for 3 days and nights. I would close my eyes and immediately there was total darkness, visually and mentally, no thoughts, no color, no remembered dreams, a deep, deep, deep sleep. And then I woke up. Quality sleep during COVID, Maureen Riccici says, has been elusive. And lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, dreams have been very vivid and often disturbing, facing situations over which I have no control, thwarted to get home, lost in a maze, unsafe, folks talking to me without masks or totally unprepared, a gun pointed at me point blank. I greet daylight with a sense of relief. Dot Ellis says she never napped except after the birth of her children, not even after the COVID shutdown. But now, she says, 6 months into rehab and assisted living, I yawn constantly and nap twice a day. Seems the lack of interpersonal stimulation and lack of exercise turned me into a napper. And Dot laments, this is not my choice of the best way to spend time. Carla Bradford has a history of stress-related sleep disturbances and also says 1 milligram of melatonin a night helps. In general, she says, I actually am sleeping better, but I have the absolute weirdest and sometimes most disturbing dreams of my life. And she adds, so far. The always surprising Kath McCafferty says, the pandemic has made the barrier between my waking and dream existence seem very thin. I miss normal sleep and hope it comes back someday, and I hope I'll recognize it if it does. At night, I am downright afraid to close my eyes for fear of the dreams. All I can do is roll with it. Ha ha, I keep singing. And then Kath quotes, joy and temperance and repose. Slam the door on the doctor's nose. Slam the door on the doctor's nose. The doctor's nose. The doctor's nose. Slam, slam the door on the doctor's nose. You know, I had actually never heard that before. It's Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Joy and temperance and repose, slam the door on the doctor's nose. Sorry, doctors. Thank you, Kath. An anonymous someone else recalls a relative who never slept and then developed early Alzheimer's and died. She now thinks sleep repairs the brain. Again, joy and temperance and repose. Diana Archibald says, since developing Parkinson's, I've had an increasingly difficult time sleeping. If anything is off, lack of exercise, too much work late at night, anxiety about the world, etc., my sleep suffers. I'm trying to reframe and see sleep as my canary in the coal mine. Sleep disturbances can help me see what I need to change. Between what I said 10 years ago and what I say now and what you've contributed in this pandemic, I think it is now past time to put this sermon to bed. I will end, however, with a panegyric, you know, a praise, a perfect panegyric praise to sleep, a perfect praise meditation written by Jenny Spencer, which she wrote and was included in that 10-year ago sermon. Feel free to close your eyes if you haven't done so already and be transported. The kind of sleep I treasure most, she says, is that summertime stupor you experience while dozing on the beach. Warm sun on your skin, faint aroma of copper tone in your nose, and the sound of the waves mixed with the voices of the people you love. A combination of idle chatter, kids arguing over the shovel, and if you're lucky, maybe an iPod somewhere nearby playing Under the Boardwalk. I'm not really asleep. I seem to be hanging out in some kind of halfway place where I can't quite commit to either slipping into deep sleep or coming fully back to consciousness. Sometimes I recall this sleep later, this fuzzy place that's halfway between here and there, and I hope that death will be like that. And when I make the decision to let go, the last sounds I hear will be the quiet conversation of those I love the most, sitting in a circle on the beach, talking about life and digging their toes into the sand. Okay, folks, I have preached in praise of sleep. No one as yet has fallen from the windows. We are not dead yet, though some of you I see are already in bed. Amen. May it be so. Sleep well. Time for an interlude. The theologian James Luther Adams once said, recognizing these dimensions of sleep and of theological reflection on sleep, we become aware of the necessity of preparing for grace through meditation and prayer, including prophetic prayer, in order that sleep may become one of nature's chief nourishers at life's feast. For even though the whole person is not active in sleep, or at least not in the fashion of the daytime, a sort of work can go on in sleep, a providential, divinely therapeutic work that is not of our own doing or deliberate intention, and which lures us on toward integrity and authentic mutuality. From this therapy of redemptive sleep, we may sense anew what Job affirmed in the face of pain and loss. I know that my Redeemer liveth. Oh, and the theologian Nancy Perkinson Willett says, yawn, sweet dreams, but wake up. February behind us. Sweet sap rising. Remember, World Sleep Day, March 18. Hit it, Robert. Thank you, Robert.